Welcome to another episode of Ask Dubey, brought to you by Bet365. Want to get in on the action for Stanley Cup playoffs? At Bet365, they got you. From game props, player props, totals, and the money line, you can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, the Stanley Cup champions, and much, much more. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older. If you haven't already, go check out the Oilers pregame. My buddy Bordsy and his Bordsy Bankroll always got good parlays for you, and they're always Oilers friendly. So go check it out and have some fun with the game. All right, first things first, we'll get into the playoff action. We'll start with the Eastern Conference, which everyone felt like was going to be a guaranteed sweep for Florida over Carolina. Carolina was able to put a game together and get a win, and it was essentially a 1-0 win, couple empty net goals, but they did what they needed to do. Carolina's a good hockey team, and they haven't been able to get anything going against these Florida Panthers, and they had to come out last game and treat it like it was Game 7, like it was do or die, shift to shift. As soon as you start thinking about the tall task that they had, all the stats, all these teams who have never done it before, you're toast. And I think they did a really good job. They came out, they were actually the better team for the majority of the game. Their penalty kill was great. Anderson was great in net, and they did what they had to do to get a win, get a feeling of a win coming in 0-15. I think they were. Now they're 1-15, but at least they have that winning feeling. So they'll try to piece that together again, go shift by shift next game, and try to squeeze one out. And hopefully for everyone to enjoy some good playoff hockey, that series goes a little longer than 5 games. But it is a tall task. It's not just the way they play. Florida's a very, very good hockey team, we all know. And Sergei Bobrovsky sometimes looks unbeatable. So tall task for the Hurricanes, but fortunately we get a little more hockey. Back to the one that we're interested in. Good news for Oilers fans. Things look great. Edmonton's playing fantastic. Last game was good in all aspects. I think they gave up more chances than they have in the past. So that's not necessarily a great thing, except that was the best game I think we've seen Stuart Skinner play all playoffs. The most chances we've seen him face. He was fantastic. He was all over it all game, only 1 goal against. Also good news, Stuart Skinner can let in a goal and still win a hockey game. So that was a bonus too. It was the first time in the playoffs he's given up a goal and won a game. So that's good. We love the shutouts, but we know we're going to need some wins out of him when he does allow a goal. But he looked really, really good in this game. And as expected, watching the first couple games of that series, Edmonton's offense is just churning. They're starting to get everything. They get a Boosh bomb. Connor McDavid starts to put pucks in the back of the net, which is bad news if you're a fan or you're the Dallas Stars. And might have seen some chinks in the armor in Jake Ottinger. Really, the only way Dallas has got to where they are, and the only chance they have, is if Jake Ottinger is playing superhuman, and he has been. But chance after chance, and the Oilers are capable of putting pucks in the back of the net. We all know. So get to the confidence of Jake Ottinger, which they did last game, and hopefully this game they can do the same thing early. You start getting after him early. Get a couple early in this game. We know how loud the building is. We know how overwhelming that feeling can get when you got the pressure of the Oilers and the offense coming at you in waves, which they have been all playoffs with the depth. They come over and over, and if a couple get in, that can start to creep into your head. And if they can get to Jake Ottinger early and get his confidence wavering a little bit, like I said, it's the only reason Dallas is here in the first place, combined with obviously some heroics from Mikko Rantanen. But truly, if Jake Ottinger is not playing superhuman, I don't think Dallas has a chance in a game. So it'll be on the Edmonton Oilers to get on him early, and we'll see what happens. All right, let's dive into some questions here. First question from T. Muller Forever. There's always a narrative that a goalie struggles against certain teams or performs well against others. How much truth do you think there is to that, and how much of it is actually on the goalie? This is a great question, and it is true. There are teams... You hope, obviously, if you're a goalie in the NHL and you're staying there, that the majority of the teams this isn't the case for, unless it's more that you feel good against. But there are teams that you just don't feel comfortable against. Usually for me, it was a team out east, someone that we don't see very often. And it could be anything. How much of it is actually on the goalie and how much of it is on the team? I think it's a combination of both, because a lot of times, however that game is going, however that team plays, whether maybe they don't shoot enough, it's a different look on the forecheck, on the rushes, the power play, all of these things where you're just not able to get comfortable in a game. One of my teams, the Washington Capitals. Everybody knows how hard Ovi took it on me every time. I think I was the only goalie in the Western Conference that had double-digit Ovi goals, so I like to say that I played my part in his record breaking, but that was combined with him. It was just a team that every time it just got in my head. Every time we played against him, I just saw number 8 on the ice, and obviously there were more guys to that with Oshie and Carlson. Backstrom was there. Their power play was just, it was tough. It was just something that I hadn't seen before. And fortunately, the last game I did play against them, I was able to get a 2-1 win. Ovi didn't score, I think, for the first time against me. So I was able to finish with a good feeling against Washington, but that was definitely a team. Pittsburgh, another one, seemed to always just light me up. I had a tough time finishing games against Pittsburgh. I did have more success sporadically against Pittsburgh, but another one that I always struggle with, teams you don't see very often. But it's goalie, that can get in your head, and the way you play, the way you feel. All of these outside things can get into a goalie's head when they play and affect their confidence. But a lot of times it's also what's happening in front of you. It's the same thing with anything. It's the goalie's only as good as the team in front of them. No goalie can go out there and play by himself. So if you match up against a team that maybe your team just doesn't do as well against the rush, or doesn't do as well penalty killing wise against a certain team, you can certainly have that feeling. And then as that piles on, if you start getting loss after loss after loss against the same team, that stuff does start to get in your head a little bit, and it's hard to get out of, especially, like I mentioned, if it's a team that you don't see very often, maybe once or twice a year, that becomes more difficult to get out of. So it is a real thing. You don't want to have that team be the team that you play in the playoffs, quite obviously. So usually I didn't really have teams in the West as much that I felt like that against, and there were only a handful of teams, but it's definitely a thing, and it's a combination of both goalie and team. All right, next question from DJ. Which current player on the Oilers is my favorite besides McDavid and Draisaitl? This is an easy one for me. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Nuge, the only player on the Oilers that I played with. It's actually insane to think about, because I was with Edmonton a long time ago, and Nuge was there. I was there when he was drafted. When he came in, I'd say he looked like a little kid, but he still looks like a little kid with a little bit, slightly more facial hair, still not that much more. I don't know if he's doing that on purpose or if he really just can't grow anymore. I'd believe either one, but Nuge is just awesome. He does everything, and he's been like that since he was drafted. Being a first overall pick, there was a lot of pressure on him. Nuge came in, he was humble, respectful, all of these things that you want from a young kid, especially a first overall pick. And he plays two ways. He's played two ways since he was drafted. That's what was really exciting about him as an 18-year-old kid, was he played the game the right way on both sides of the puck. And he's gotten better and better and better. Obviously, he's played for years and years now, but he's just the guy. He kind of gets forgotten about a little bit because you have Connor and Leon, who are always being talked about for obviously good reasons. And Nuge is always there. He's producing. He's always provides offense, but he's the guy that goes on the ice in every single situation. If you're up by a goal, if you're down by a goal, if it's penalty kill sometime, whatever it is, Nuge is the guy you put out there, and that just shows how well-rounded of a player he is. He can contribute all the time, and he's always a big part of the game. He has been in this playoff run, and he's just one of my favorite guys and favorite players, and it's fun to watch him grow up. It certainly makes me feel old, but it's fun to watch him, knowing that I knew him as an 18-year-old kid when he got drafted, and watching him grow has just been a blast. Okay, on to the next question from Mike Levicki. Who had the most unusual pregame routine / superstition when you played for the Oilers? That's a good question. That was a long time ago, so it's not easy to remember all of it. It wasn't really necessarily a routine. It was just kind of how he went about things. I was fortunate enough to get to play with Nikolai Khabibulin. He's a legend. I'm 39 years old, I think, when I was playing with him, and this guy was in phenomenal shape. He took great care of himself. He was a good role model for me to just watch a guy at his age who's done everything that he had, the way that he took care of himself, his preparation, the way that he got ready for games day in, day out, even on practice days, was great for me to see a professional like that handle himself the way he did. Speaking of in shape, Habby was built like a Ninja Turtle. He had 8 abs that stuck out. They were huge. I don't know what was happening in Russia when he was a kid, but his body was still pretty darn good, and he made sure that everybody saw it. He would play ping pong on practice days. He'd get off the ice, he'd go shower, he'd come in, and he'd just rock a towel. He'd just wear a towel, and he'd go play ping pong. I don't know how the towel stayed on. I don't know if he had a clip in there. It did stay on, fortunately, but he would play ping pong in just a towel, and he was also really good at ping pong as well. And combined with that, he used to sweat so much. He sweat more than anybody I'd ever seen. I think he'd lose 8, 9, 10 pounds in a game. And so he actually wore a different jersey every single period and a new set of gloves every single period. He might have just had 2 sets of gloves that they would then dry, but he wore a different set of gloves every single period because he just sweat that much. I just never seen somebody lose that much water weight in a game. But that's probably the most unusual, maybe the ping pong routine. But again, it was a pleasure to play with him. I was happy I got that role model to see somebody prepare professionally that way day in, day out. And I tried to take as much of that with me as I could. All right, next question from the village. My son Lyndon, big fan of Oilers goalies, asks what the most saves he ever made in one game. Well, I got a few different ones. The most saves I ever made in a game was back in my major junior career when I was playing for the Kamloops Blazers. And it's an interesting story. My dad taught me everything I know about goaltending growing up. And then I got to the point probably when I started playing junior that I kind of knew more about goaltending than he did. So he stopped giving me pointers and how I was playing. He just became a big supporter and a fan and a dad. And it was great. And I think this is maybe 18 or 19. So I'd played a few years and they were visiting over New Year's. And we played New Year's Eve at home against Lethbridge and we lost 4-2. And my dad kind of reamed me out after the game and it caught me off guard. He told me I was lazy. I didn't have energy. My movements were lazy. I looked like I didn't care. And that really pissed me off. I was not happy about it. I don't know exactly what I said back to him. I said, you don't know what you're talking about. Typical son to dad thing. I was really upset because it just caught me off guard. He hadn't said anything like that to me in a long time. Next day, we played against Kelowna at home, and Kelowna was a wagon at this time. They had Shea Weber and Duncan Keith on the blue line, along with some other guys. Tyler Spurgeon was there, Blake Como. They had a really, really good team, and we had to play these guys 10 times a year. So the next day we're playing at home, and I'm mad. I want to prove my dad wrong, which I'm sure it was the whole point of him talking to me. And we go out and we got outshot 67-17 and won the game 4-2. So I got 65 saves in that game, and I remember walking out after the game and I just kind of looked at my dad. He looked at me and kind of gave me a smile, and I was like, "Gosh, shut up." So he knew exactly what he was doing, and it worked. As far as NHL games go, you can go to the Oilers. My first season with the Oilers, struggled for a while. My game started to come around towards the end of the year. I started feeling better and better, and me and Jeff Deslauriers were rotating games. So my last game of the season landed on the second last game of the season, and we were in LA playing against the Kings, and we got outshot 55-12, and we won 4-3 at a shootout. So I had 52 saves in that game. The worst part about that game is we were winning 3-0 at one point, and I think they scored 3 goals in the last 5 minutes of the third to tie it up. So that would have been disappointing to end up with a loss in that game. Fortunately, we got it done in the shootout. That was a big game for me. I really think that kind of cemented. I was going into a restricted free agent year, and I think that cemented my place on the team the following season. I got a 2-year one-way contract and was kind of slated to be Habby Boone's backup the next year. So obviously one game doesn't set that. I was playing well going into it, but certainly it was a good message to send going into an off season, combined with the fact that we may have lost the next game 8-1 in Anaheim. Also might have helped my cause a little bit there. And I had one in Minnesota as well. We played Carolina. I think they got 58 shots on me. That one we lost 5-4 in overtime. So it wasn't as memorable, but there were a few in my first year or two with the Oilers that they were in the 50s, which is why we were in the loss column a little more than we would have liked to be. But those are always memorable games. I think the one in junior was my favorite, just with the whole story with my dad. So lots of games to remember, but that was 65 was the most saves I ever had in one game. All right, one final take for this week. I'm going to touch on the Darnell Nurse slash a little bit. Obviously, you got both sides of it. Oilers fans think it's nothing. Dallas fans wanted some sort of suspension or a 5-minute call. I get it. You're upset that you lost one of your best players, and that's unfortunate. You never want to see guys go out for injury, but you could see how quickly they're going to review the call, but you can see how quickly when they reviewed it that they just gave it a 2-minute minor. Listen, this stuff happens all the time. In playoffs, in regular season, there's a mix-up in front of the net. They're going to war. They're battling against each other. Nurse turns around to give him one extra shot, and listen, it was a good shot. He didn't wind up. He didn't baseball swing him. He gave him a hard slash in the absolute perfect spot that you want to hit somebody if you want to make it work. And unfortunately, he did hit him. He hit him hard. And again, you never want to see injuries, but when you're going to slash somebody, you're kind of doing it so that they feel it. And that's a spot that you're going to feel it is right on top of the foot. But it happened quickly. And yes, he slashed him hard, but it wasn't. That play could happen 100 times over and a guy's not going to be hurt. His foot might hurt a little bit, but he's probably going to be out the next shift. So again, I get Pete DeBoer's upset about it. He mentioned if that happened to Connor McDavid, everybody would be out in arms. But yes, no offense, Pete. Roope Hintz is not Connor McDavid. So that doesn't really work that way. It doesn't work that way for anybody except Connor McDavid, and we haven't seen that. So I think it was an unfortunate turnout on a play that happens multiple times a game in the regular season and the playoffs. So I think it was fine. He served his penalty. They killed the penalty off. He got what he deserved for a slash. That's it for another episode of Ask Dubey. Thanks for watching. As always, post your questions with the hashtag AskDubey on all social media platforms, or drop your question in the comments section below, and we'll make sure we get to it. Today's episode was brought to you by our friends at Wilhauk Beef Jerky. Only the finest tasting meat products earn the Wilhauk name. Made from 100% pure Alberta beef, Wilhauk Beef Jerky is aged, seasoned, marinated, and smoked to savory perfection. You can find their beef jerky, sausage, and other products exclusively out of their Leduc location, or you can order online. Get your jerky on at wilhaukbeefjerky.com.
What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.